Welcome, welcome everyone. So happy you're here to tap in with us, Therapeutic Astrology Podcast. And if you don't know by now that the therapeutic astrology is kind of it includes a lot of themes, and especially it includes our wholeness. And usually we find that through some kind of meditation, and also through meditation, we figure out who we really are through some kind of self-inquiry. So today we are stepping into our second part with Rosalyn Rourke. I'm so happy to welcome you back, Rosalyn.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So we had a bit of a cliffhanger from last time, and then some new stuff is gonna open up for sure. We are talking about themes from your book When Wisdom Arrives, so people can Google that, and also, of course, find links in the show notes if they want to know more. But last time we just mentioned shortly that when things don't turn out the way that we want, right? And you lost a daughter, so that's a big one, to lose a child. You definitely don't want that to happen. And now, through this non-dual approach, what do you do with that pain and suffering? Would you mind say something about that?
Yes, I love that that's your first question because I was just thinking this morning about pain being sacred. We grow up in the Western world, which I consider Europe and the US, all the Western world, to recoil from pain, to experience it as bad. But pain doesn't mean anything without joy. Without you need to have the opposites to understand one, to understand the other. And the thing about pain that is so sacred is that it opens us up. We lose our regular tools of defensiveness. And if we're honest, each of us, let's have everybody think of at least a disappointment. You didn't get what you wanted, or you actually lost someone or something, a job, a person. It doesn't matter the subject. They're on a continuum, but nobody gets everything they think of, even though there are manifestation kings and queens that say they do. They are taking credit for the times they got what they desired. I don't want to get off track there, but let's everybody think of something recent that you were bummed about. You lost something, a person, a job, an idea, an opportunity. You got it. Everybody's got something. Now think of how were you before that? Were you an open vessel to the divine? Were you cut off from people and things, worried about fearful things, worried about who to push away, who wasn't safe, what wasn't safe, how to protect yourself, how to get ahead, how to work it, how to blah, 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 fill in the blank? Or were you open and relaxed and really understanding that you are one with all and the divine? I think I have everybody's answer. So we have this belief system that's a little crazy, like we were so good before this thing happened that we lost. So how about we value the loss of some of those defenses where it's not a very divine feeling if I feel I have to get everything in this world, that no good is coming to me we breathe air without our control. It's actually not true that we have to get everything that we receive. You don't make your systems in your body work. They work on their own because you're alive. And I love astrology because it's so predictive. I don't really understand it, but I'm so impressed with the few readings I've received in my life. But going back to the subject, you asked me, how do we do grief and pain?
Mm.
You didn't say, well, you mentioned grief with my daughter. So last time I said the most important sentence in this book, and really for anybody even not reading the book that just wants an immediate breakthrough, the most important sentence I can say today, if you receive it, is, if thoughts and feelings were truth, they would be called facts. So we believe all our feelings. He's not safe. This is the worst thing that could have happened. This should have happened, and so on. But stay with me a minute. If we actually took that sentence and heard the thoughts, oh my God, I'll never see Melissa again. We'll never have coffee again. How can we do Christmas? I can't imagine life without her. These are hurtful thoughts, but if I believe them, I will go down a road of looping. They will add to each other, just like I just demonstrated, and this, and this, and this. But if we develop our observer, as we started to do in the last segment, and by the observer, it's not just we notice, but you say kind of to yourself, ouch, ooh, watch me, I'm really hurting. And instead of how do I get rid of this pain, open, oh, I'm feeling pain. Pain is an energy. I don't know what to do with it. Good. If you know what to do with it, you're going to do it your same old defensive way. We have all kinds of defenses. That's where the Enneagram comes in. For me, it's a way to describe it. Probably in astrological terms, you would describe how a person defends themselves. But let's not value our defenses. Let's value openness so we can have a new experience. So if it hurts, recognize, ouch, I'm hurting. And then in order to have a pattern interrupt, do not add to that painful thought. The minute you say, ouch, you're recognizing you're going down a hole of pain. Pain isn't bad. It can open us if you don't have more resources. That's what happened to me. I was hurting so badly with the stages of grief that I was indulging. And then something spoke to me, whether it's my higher self or the divine, it doesn't matter what it was, but it said, actually, you're okay now. Like in this moment, you're okay. You're not okay having Christmas without her in the future. You're not okay about the past that she died. But in this moment, if you were really truthful, even though that goes against all the taboos, to admit that I'm okay, that is the truth. And then I next very quickly thought, oh, but you can't tell anyone. No, now my image started to go in, but that didn't fly. I just heard it. It was a judgment that's what I'm talking about, the observer. I noticed I was judging being okay, but I didn't add to it. I didn't say, oh, let me see who will agree with me, who will approve of me. That would be following it up and looping.
Mm.
I just said, oh, look at that. I'm afraid of going against the myth. And it feels like a myth. If it's true that I'm actually okay now, I had to come up with a new word. Not good, not happy, not joyful. Okay felt empty of pain and kind of in the middle where I wasn't being the personal me so much, but I wasn't trying. I was just open to it. But luckily, I had gone through so much pain first that not hurting was such a profound gift. This okayness, to feel okay for even a moment, was so attractive, but I wasn't filled with a high of like, what am I going to do and how am I going to live and what's next? That's all like not now. But there was a pattern interrupt because I allowed I'm okay. Now, even if I hadn't got that download of you're okay now, let's say I was just going through those stages of grief. If someone had taught me, don't add to it. So the fable in the book is talking to a little girl. It had to be very simple. But that's why I wrote it this way, because we get so complicated with our neuro-linguistic programming and all these fancy words and blah, blah, blah. But it really comes down to not believing our thoughts and feelings. Just because you feel it doesn't mean anything. You feel opposite things in seconds. I want this cake. You shouldn't have eaten that cake. You know, opposite, like which is true? Neither. It's just cake. You know. So you can see how that comes first, not having such belief in the sense of truth to the thoughts and feelings, because otherwise you won't do all the other steps of opening and not adding to it, right? And you won't get the pattern interrupt that we're all so hungry for. We're desiring some freedom from this painful inner. Yesterday, I was wanting to call it a molester. And usually we think of molestation as sexual, but we have to wake up. It didn't get us awoke or awake by using the word judgment. We know we're judging ourselves. We know we're judging other people, and we just go right on ahead, or we judge ourselves for judging. But that I was calling it a molester yesterday because it gets everyone's attention. And molestation, for me, the reason I liked that word yesterday, who knows how it'll be received, but I liked it because it involves an impulse and it involves something unwanted.
Yeah.
It also involves something, if the molestation feels good, it's kind of complicated. It could feel good to the victim. It could, I don't know about that word victim, but the person receiving the molestation. I was molested. So many people were. And for me, it felt good, which made it very confusing. And so that word, if we take it out of the sexual and ask, do we molest ourselves with our thoughts and our feelings, and then just go really like victims, like we can't stop these thoughts. And we're not about trying to intervene. we're about treating them as energy that just passes through. They're not the Holy Grail. Let's just wake up to that. So that was a lot of talking.
That is a brilliant beginning. Wow, and the foundation for all of it. Wow, yeah. So we're talking about pattern interrupt. We are talking about not adding on. So this is some of the terms that I'm trying to get as you speak, and it's because one thing is that you've heard it before, right? And another thing is, did you then implement it in your life, right? And as many of us still haven't, at least not in all situations, then there's more to talk about, right? We need to hear more about this way of relating to ourselves and the world, I think. And I like the idea of a Melista, inner Melista. I've I've heard I like to call it self-attack, but I see that your idea about that it can also feel nice is kind of nuancing to the
Well,
Melissa.
and we have the habit. And so habits feel good because they're mindless. We just go about it and we enjoy it in the sense of it has its familiar group. You know, grouping in your brain, it's a roadway, it's a map. We know how to do it. And we believe in hurting ourselves because we were taught that if you judge it, you'll do better. There's some kind of thing we were taught that, you know, with a pointed finger.
Yeah.
Now that's not right. And being harsh and yelling, and people have different versions, but there is a false belief that that is going to get better behavior. Anybody who's eaten food or drunk liquor when they didn't want it but wanted it, and then said, I'm not going to do that anymore. How has it worked? And you know, never works. Or if you call yourself fat, you just shouldn't have eaten that, as though, or a diet, and punish yourself. Short-term compliance we get from yelling. If a parent is scary, they can get short-term compliance, but we know statistically that most of those children will turn out angry like the angry parent and really not behave toward the way that was pointed to, but really more like the person who was pointing.
Right. I'm sitting with one question from before, but just for what you just said, what would you offer instead?
Compassion, openness, compassion meaning willingness. What's that about? I wanted to punish myself because I ate whatever. Oh, that's about my history. But I'm not believing, yes, I bet, which diet shall I go on? How can I do better tomorrow? Just notice it. That is it, as long as you don't believe it, like, oh, there it goes again, that old punishing thinking. There it is. Oh, not be mad at yourself. Of course, you're going to think and feel the way you always have, but it doesn't mean you can't have a new experience today, right now, if you don't treat it as the Holy Grail. It's already over, that thought. You don't, that feeling, if you allow it, just, oh, look at that. I was angry, or I was in pain, or I was judgmental. I like those 7 feelings: the joy, pain, anger, fear, guilt, shame. I call guilt perceived mistakes, shame imagined unworthiness, and presence as the last one, or lust for life. When you're really present, there's a new enthusiasm and openness that can emanate. And these 7 feelings were created by Pia Malady in the 80s for addictions. And they have been very, very useful because they're bigger than what we want to say. oh, I'm a little anxious. Oh, I'm a little frustrated. But if instead of frustrated, you're trying to make it small and you say, I'm on the anger continuum, even if you say I have a little anger, and interview yourself, is there any pain in that? Yeah, there is pain and I ate the cake. Yes, there's anger and I ate the cake. Is there any joy? Yeah, I love that cake. Is there any fear? Yes, I'm scared I'm going to keep on doing this and blah, 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 blah. And so on. Perceived mistakes, I shouldn't have done that. Imagined unworthiness, yeah, I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to get slim. I'm never going to, I can't do this. I can't be beautiful like other people's bodies. Oh, look, I'm shaming myself some more. I'm now comparing myself. Oops, let that go. Oh, do you notice how much more present I am? Because I spoke the truth just now about these feelings. It's like a release. And so it's the alternative to imagining that these feelings and thoughts are the truth.
Mm. Yeah. So where I feel it gets a little complicated is you were saying earlier about thoughts about who am I safe with or not, right? And I would say that's probably a very good idea to discern for yourself who are safe to be around and who are not safe to be around. So there are all of these everyday matters that we need to engage in.
Well, here's the thing. I would say most of the people I work with have enneagrams that are overly protective. So what I mean by that is if somebody is unsafe and coming at you with a knife, you actually don't need to prepare because you will do what you're going to do. You're going to run, you're going to, talk them down, you're going to do whatever you're going to do. All of these thoughts about does this the people I know that are spend most of their day thinking about how to deal with unsafe people, they're really unsafe in their own minds. This is not a conversation. If you're about an abuser, if you're living with an abuser, this is not you. You need to deal with that. And that's a real situation. It's not about thoughts and feelings that loop in your head about being in a relationship, a husband, a son, or somebody who's not actually coming after you, but you don't like his tone of voice. You're hiding from them in your looping thoughts.
Mm.
It's not any different from the cake story. They're going through it all day long. If the person really isn't safe, truly isn't safe, then you have to do something about it.
Mm.
But these people are more dealing with their own issues about anger, about being present, about standing up for themselves, about wanting something they believe they need to get from someone else. It's more like that, and they are the ones who actually don't need to think about more about who's unsafe unless they really are. Then they need to do an action to
Right.
get this person to resolve this. But I'm talking more about the majority of people who loop around the fears about other people.
Yeah, right. Okay. And so what we need, and you said long for, is a pattern interrupt.
Mhm.
Pattern interrupt, meaning this is a pattern to overthink or keep thinking about the same stuff. Is that the interrupt we need? Or
Yes, it's like if you don't buy it. So I'll just use myself as an example, unless you have one that comes up. I don't have any food rules. I don't try to live, with good food and bad food. That is not what worked for me. So I can have cake or I can have whatever without it being a bad food.
Right.
But when I'm going through emotional things or something I'm, let's say, preparing for, and I don't feel I have it together yet to do this next step, I might go and take the cake that I'm not hungry for, that is not anything I actually want. It's an old pattern.
Yeah.
So if I say, well, get some cake, you'll feel better. You'll be more ready. Get some cake. I could get the cake. It wouldn't be wrong, but it would trigger the old looping. Now, if I eat cake because I want to celebrate, because I want to taste it, because it's delicious, because I want it, there is none of that old baggage. So my observer, when I say, let's get the cake, but I'm saying to myself, okay, you can get the cake, but are you feeling anger? Are you having joy, pain, anger, fear, guilt, shame, lust? And then I see, oh, yes. And I say it back to myself, oh, yes, you're afraid and you're not sure you're able to do this yet. And you're afraid you're going to make mistakes. So that's almost like you're playing out like you have made mistakes. You're imagining it. Maybe I don't want the cake now. Maybe I'll get the cake later. But now, after I've done those feelings, I've had a pattern interrupt from that moment that said, get the cake.
Yeah, I see. So it's really growing in self-awareness like that.
Yeah, and be willing to ask those feelings. People are not attracted to kindergarten. It sounds so easy. And we want something with bigger words, with it's going to be harder. We have more respect for those things. But it's actually the simple things that we can do over and over. And the truth is simple.
Yeah, no, that is good. I recognize that. That's I like it to be completely advanced, and then I realize that I don't know the basics. Yeah, so
And that we need some things very concrete,
yeah,
so simple when we're in that tricky place of have the wine now, when nothing wrong with wine unless you judge it and you do icky things in your mind about the wine or whatever it is that you do. But we all have things, and sometimes it's not an addiction kind of thing, but we're addicted to these people I referred to. They're addicted to thinking about everybody else rather than where they are.
yeah, yeah. That's a condition as well. That's like
Yeah.
you were talking about how it's I don't know, protection system that we're closed off like that. So that's yeah, and so do we want that pattern to be interrupted, and we want to avoid adding on? I also like that way of saying it. Like, could you say some more about what adding on means?
Yeah. I want to say something more about we're talking as though we're doing things. We want some tools,
Mm,
but we started out with the grace of pain.
yeah,
And in that pattern interrupt, when we just stop the looping thoughts and feelings for even a second. So the feelings thing, is valuable in and of itself to be present to oneself, to know what's going on. We have then a caring presence who's willing to admit and allow. But in the pattern interrupt, we've kind of opened to silence, and we've opened to something else helping us. You know, it's a little bit of a fit with the 12 steps in the sense of my best defenses got me here. And if I'm willing to not believe them, then I'm open to being shown another way. So let's not think we're in charge and we have to do this and we have to do this. Awareness does it all. If you just are willing to see that some thoughts and some feelings are hurtful, and some thoughts, very few, are neutral, like take a sweater. It's cold outside. The really neutral ones don't require much thinking, and they require no looping. You don't go back and forth. No, sweater, no sweater, yes, sweater, no sweater. No. You either take the sweater or you don't take the sweater. At a stoplight, you stop or you go. You know, you either listen to the stoplight and do, but it doesn't create that looping stuff. Mm-hmm. What creates the looping stuff is our painful defenses, our old conditioning, which is really all about the personal self. Personal self is my personality, including my history and even my ancestors, and the same for you. But there's something bigger called life. We don't have to get into anybody's spiritual beliefs because we all know we're alive. We don't think we're alive. We don't have a feeling we're alive. We don't have to contemplate it. We know we're alive. And with an appreciation that we didn't birth ourselves, that so much is being done for us in the body mechanics and even in the experiences. I still consider myself a lucky person, even though my daughter passed away. Everything is an opportunity. I wouldn't be doing this podcast. I wouldn't have the wisdom I have today had I not gone through everything. And I don't say everything is for the good, because that brings up the bad. Everything just is. And it's in the isness where there's peace. So I wouldn't want anybody to go away from this with a list of to-do things. The awareness, which is consciousness, which is life, will help you if you're not taking over. So the 7 feelings, the inquiry, give you that break. Now, you're not going to be able to not add on. You're going to add on if you believe everything you think and feel is the truth. So we're back to don't buy it. And we buy it because we believe in it, because it's our conditioned beliefs. But let's be curious and say, well, maybe not. Maybe this person that I'm so afraid of because he might raise his voice, maybe it's not about him. I don't believe that yet, but let me be open and let awareness show me next. So allowing life to give you messages, to teach you new ways, believe in that more than you believe in your to-do list.
This is really good. And I like that you interrupted the pattern of the way that the questions were lined up. I like that, and I understand your point. This is not something that we do. I guess it's something we allow, and the whole comparison with what happens inside our body all the time automatically, outside of our will. So I don't know, Rosalind. I didn't ask you this before we started recording, but I'm I'm just I want to ask if we could do some kind of exercise. We did a little bit last time where it just happened. I don't know if that would be a thing.
Yeah,
Would want to go
let's do
into some kind
that.
of inquiry.
What is the subject that most disturbs you? So I'll start off with something like that. Is there something that pops in, a subject,
And
like how you're received by other people, or how the podcast goes, or that came up last time? Anything else that you would that you could give me that might be something your people
yeah,
might be concerned with?
yeah. My first impulse was to say that an ongoing thing is how to integrate this, but I see that it's good to have like an example of something happening emotionally. So,
It doesn't have to be that way, but we want a starting point. We can start with everybody thinking of the last thing that upset them, where they noticed they were upset, they were looping, and everybody can have their own subject,
yeah,
if that's a little easier.
sure, yeah.
So let's all have a subject. I have one that we can start out with,
Mhm.
and you can all have yours, but uh, someone, my virtual assistant has been taking my Thursday musings. I do video recordings every Thursday that I send out, and she makes reels from them. So I've never done anything on TikTok. She takes from my Thursday musings and puts them on TikTok.
Mhm.
And for my TEDx audience, I need to have bigger numbers. They want to know how many people you have on this and that.
Yeah.
So I was following somebody's new instruction yesterday for making these 90-second videos. And I had all kinds of trouble doing them. And I wasn't feeling great about them, but he says, put them on, publish them. And
Mm.
I wasn't even getting through them. So it was a real feeling of, oh, you're not good enough,
Mm.
them. So, and then when you make it public, that's the other part of shame. Shame says, imagine unworthiness. You don't want anybody to know if you really believe in it. So this is an example of, I used to believe that I was unworthy, and then I worked to be special, to counteract. That's one of the defenses that I was talking about earlier. We have all these defenses. So I went back and forth between not being good enough and pumping myself up for being special in this and that way. And it doesn't work, because you just go back and forth on the coins. But there were remnants of that. Really, I'm going to put this out there, this thing that's not even finished and whatever. And that's not home anymore for me. Whatever you thought of, this is your listeners,
Mm.
whatever you thought of, recognize how that is a kind of home for you. You may not like the feeling, because it may be painful, it may be scary. A lot of people use fear to protect themselves, because they are then ready for every awful thing that could happen. So that's a strategy, and that's home for them. Unworthiness and being special, that coin was home for me. Notice, be honest. Is this a familiar pattern? Whatever you came up with that was disturbing.
Mm.
Now, I want you to notice where in your body you feel it. Does it hurt or feel anxious in a particular place? Let's just look at the heart and the chest. Does it feel crunched? Does it feel tight? Or can you open it with the new breath? Let's just check into your neck and shoulders. Are they tight? Are you feeling like you've been attacked and your shoulders rounding and your neck tense? If so, allow them to open. Breathe into them, knowing that oxygen wants to flow through, blood wants to flow through, energy wants to flow through. Let's come into your head, and we've had swirling thoughts and feelings. And let's just clear our heads, because we bring along these bodies and they hold these thoughts and feelings. And let's imagine that we can come out through the roof of our head. We're just going to make like a tunnel out into the room and break out of your head and into the room with this new energy that's available in the room. The room doesn't know your story. The room is holding you. You're standing, you're sitting. It's provided chairs, it's provided air. It's doing an exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Breathe deeply into the room. The room is always there. It actually doesn't change. Maybe the temperature changes, but air is always air. And let's just pretend that with our arms, we can stretch out from this room into the air outside of your particular place that you are. And know that the walls were just an artificial barrier to the inside air and the outside air. And because you're alive, you get to breathe. You deserve to breathe. You don't have to be better, different, fixed, or anything else to allow for the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. And just like the trees help each other, life is here to assist you in your next experience. And your next experience, if you are open to it, can be sacred, whatever it is. And feelings are sacred. Thoughts are sacred. It's all sacred because we're alive. Our aliveness is just the opposite of death. And even that is sacred. It's only our minds that judge this is good, this is bad, this I want, this I don't want. It's fine. So if we can be open to what is, maybe you've had a loss, maybe someone spoke to you in a way you didn't care for, maybe your TikToks didn't come out very well. So what? If I was selling insect repellent and you had no need or desire for insect repellent, it wouldn't matter if someone came by and said, buy this insect repellent. You would just have no thanks in there. You wouldn't say, why is he selling me insect repellent? And oh my God, insect repellent. No, you just say, no, thank you. So notice the attraction that upset you. It's an attraction because it's familiar and you've made it your home. But it's only your home because of a pattern, a habit. Habits aren't the real you. And we know now that brains are elastic. And when we allow ourselves to be broken open by pain, by joy, by life, something new can happen. And we don't know what that is. Let's all agree to be curious and let go of the doing. We will still do, but let's look for an inner movement to do it. If you're supposed to do it, it won't go away in the next second. So let's not buy every thought and feeling that comes to us. And if we do buy it, know that that's our pattern and it's just a habit. And habits are reversed and allowed to open to new habits with really small changes. So the next time you don't add to a painful thought, meaning, yeah, and I did this, and the last time I did something wrong, and I'll never be a good TikTok, whatever, creator. And oh my God, what am I doing on TikTok? And that's adding to it. But if I notice, ooh, I picked up that old habit of putting myself down for something new, for something I'm not good at yet. Now I want to smile because it's an old habit. And now just by smiling and treating myself kindly, I'm open to a new moment. That is, I don't even need to work on that old feeling that came up on TikTok. It's gone, it's over today or this new moment. I am open to the new moment. So let's all come back into the room, come back into our bodies, come back into our hearts and our gratitude to be together today.
I'm definitely grateful, Rosalind. This is really good. This is something you can hear over and over, what you just did. And yeah, just walk through it with whatever topic is on your mind. Yeah, this is really good. This is loving yourself.
Yeah, and allowing. I have a little trouble with loving because when people don't love themselves, which most of us are trained not to do, that is hubris. If I came in here and said, I love myself, people would close up, but loving what
Loving what
is our, because otherwise we go into the opposite of love. We go into personal love. It's not all going to be loving. And so, but what is, if we allow what is, it doesn't mean we agree. We're actually taking away our personal opinion and we're opening to the divine. Because if it happened, it was supposed to happen. How do I know? Because it happened. So let's not be in a fight with what is, and make sure that it's what is and not your story,
Mm.
because most of it is our story.
Yeah, it's very recognizable what you're talking about with a home. And
Yeah,
immediately when you said it, I was like, oh no, you're right about that. I immediately just knew what that was, a home. Oh
yeah,
yeah, that's my, for example, overthinking, have I done something wrong or whatever. That's that is
yeah,
so familiar. That is so
yeah.
familiar.
So we don't even notice it, and then we're in the looping because it seems like our best. We did our best. We got a strategy. Maybe yours is overthinking. And it was probably the best strategy for your family, for your situation, something maybe more volatile, who spoke up for themselves and was loud and direct and a leader, might not have worked so well in your family, as well as being thoughtful and fearful and careful and so on. So it's not that our strategies are bad or wrong. It's just that they're limited. And life has more unlimited for us if we're open to it.
Rosalind, I think we that should be the last words
Yeah.
for this session at least. Um,
Yes.
you know,
Perfect.
there's so much more to it, and it's limitless, and yeah, all of that. It's so good. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was very, very fun to be with you.
So
Bye
much.
for now.
Yeah, bye for now. So much. I just wanted to say it's so much to digest, right? So I want to, invite people to hear it again and continue in this conversation because it's not just a one-time thing. Oh yeah, got it, right? It's continuous to train your mind to think in this way and
Yeah,
to
to allow your mind to let go. We don't even have to train it.
right, yeah, even that
Don't
word,
even have to. We're so trained in doing, and all we need to do is allow, and it's there for us like our breath.
untrain. Yeah, unwind. Okay, thank you. Now I'll say goodbye. I'll let you go.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.